Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jai Advaita Chandra, Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Vande Gurun Isha Bhaktan, Ishan, Isha Vatarakan, Taprakasham Statachakti, Krishna Chaitanya Samjakam. Vande Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Nityanandao Sahodito, Godo Dai Pushpavanto, Chitro Shando Tamonudao. Welcome back, everybody. We're continuing our reading of the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. And we're at Madhya Lila chapter 10. Could that be? How do we get all the way to chapter 10? Page by page? Okay. We're taking up at text number what? 18? Yes. When Sri Caitanya Mahāprabhu returns, I wish to see him just once in order to make my eyes perfect. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya replied, His Holiness, Lord Sri Caitanya Mahāprabhu will return very soon. I wish to have a nice place ready for him, a place solitary and peaceful. Lord Chaitanya's residence should be very secluded and also near the temple of Jagannatha. Please consider this proposal and give me a nice place for him. The king replied, Kashi Mishra's house is exactly what you require. It is near the temple and it is very secluded, calm and quiet. After saying this, the king became very anxious for the Lord to return. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya then went to Kashi Mishra to convey the king's desire. When Kashi Mishra heard the proposal, he said, I am very fortunate that Sri Caitanya Mahāprabhu, the Lord of all Prabhus, will stay at my home. Purport. In this verse, the word Prabhupada, referring to Sri Caitanya Mahāprabhu, is significant. Regarding this, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada comments, Sri Caitanya Mahāprabhu is the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself, Sri Krishna, and all his servants address him as Prabhupada. This means that there are many Prabhus taking shelter under his lotus feet. The pure Vaishnava is addressed as Prabhu, and this address is an etiquette observed between Vaishnavas. When many Prabhus remain under the shelter of the lotus feet of another Prabhu, the address Prabhupada is given. Sri Nityananda Prabhu and Sri Advaita Prabhu are also addressed as Prabhupada. Sri Caitanya Mahāprabhu, Sri Advaita Prabhu, and Sri Nityananda Prabhu are all Vishnu Tattva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu. Therefore, all living entities are under their lotus feet. Lord Vishnu is the eternal Lord of everyone, and the representative of Lord Vishnu is the Lord's confidential servant. Such a person acts as the spiritual master for neophyte Vaishnavas. Therefore, the spiritual master is as respectable as Sri Krishna Chaitanya or Lord Vishnu himself. For this reason, the spiritual master is addressed as Om Vishnupad or Prabhupada. The Acharya, the spiritual master, is generally respected by others as Shripad, and the initiated Vaishnavas are addressed as Prabhu. Prabhu, Prabhupada, and Vishnupad are described in revealed scriptures like Srimad Bhagavatam, Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, and Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat. In this regard, these scriptures present evidence accepted by unalloyed devotees. The Prakrita Sahajas are not even worthy of being called Vaishnavas. They think that only caste Goswamis should be called Prabhupada. Such ignorant Sahajas call themselves Vaishnav Das Anudas, which means the servant of the Vaishnavas. However, they are opposed to addressing a pure Vaishnav as Prabhupada. In other words, they are envious of a bona fide spiritual master who is addressed as Prabhupada, and they commit offenses by considering a bona fide spiritual master an ordinary human being or a member of a certain caste. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur describes such sahajas as most unfortunate. Because of their misconceptions, they fall into a hellish condition. Thus, all the residents of Jagannath Puri, which is also known as Purushottam, became anxious to meet Sri Caitanya Mahāprabhu. When all the residents of Jagannath Puri became extremely anxious to meet the Lord again, he returned from South India. Hearing of the Lord's return, everyone became very happy, and they all went to Sarvabhaumacharya and spoke to him as follows. Please arrange our meeting with Sri Caitanya Mahāprabhu. It is only by your mercy that we can attain the shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord. The Bhattacharya replied to the people, tomorrow the Lord will be at the house of Kashi Mishra. I shall arrange for you all to meet him. The next day, Sri Caitanya Mahāprabhu arrived and went with Sarvabhaumacharya with great enthusiasm to see the temple of Lord Jagannath. All the servants of Lord Jagannath delivered remnants of the Lord's food to Sri Caitanya Mahāprabhu. In return, Caitanya Mahāprabhu embraced them all. After seeing Lord Jagannath, Sri Caitanya Mahāprabhu left the temple. The Bhattacharya then took him to the house of Kashi Mishra. When Sri Caitanya Mahāprabhu arrived at his house, Kashi Mishra immediately fell down at his lotus feet and surrendered himself and all his possessions. Sri Caitanya Mahāprabhu then showed Kashi Mishra his four-armed form. Then, accepting him for his service, the Lord embraced him. Sri Caitanya Mahāprabhu next sat down at the place prepared for him, and all the devotees headed by Lord Nityananda Prabhu surrounded him. Sri Caitanya Mahāprabhu was very happy to see his residential quarters, in which all his necessities were taken care of. Sarvabhaumacharya said, this place is just befitting you. Please accept it. It is the hope of Kashi Mishra that you do. Sri Caitanya Mahāprabhu said, my body belongs to all of you. Therefore I agree to whatever you say. After this, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, sitting at the right hand of the Lord, began to introduce all the inhabitants of Purushottam Jagannath Puri. The Bhattacharya said, my dear Lord, all these people who are residents of Nilachala, Jagannath Puri, have been very anxious to meet you. In your absence, all these people have been exactly like thirsty chataka birds, crying in disappointment. Kindly accept them. Sarvabhaumacharya first introduced Janardhan, saying, here is Janardhan, servant of Lord Jagannath. He renders service to the Lord when it is time to renovate his transcendental body. Purport: during Anavasara, after the Snan Yatra ceremony, Lord Jagannath is absent from the temple for 15 days so he can be renovated. This occurs annually. Janardhan, who is here being introduced to Sri Caitanya Mahāprabhu, was rendering this service at the time. The renovation of Lord Jagannath is also known as Nava Yovana, which indicates that the Jagannath deity is being fully restored to youth. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya continued, this is Krishna Das, who carries a golden cane. And here is Shiki Mahiti, who is in charge of writing. The person in charge of writing is also called Dyulak Karanapad Prapta Karmachari. He is employed especially to write a calendar called Matala Panji. This is Pradyumna Mishra, who is the chief of all Vaishnavas. He is a great servitor of Jagannath, and his name is Das. Purport: in Orissa, most of the Brahmanas have the title Das. Generally, it is understood that the word Das refers to those other than the Brahmanas, but in Orissa, the Brahmanas use the Das title. This is confirmed by Chuli Bhatta. Actually, everyone is Das because everyone is a servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In that sense, the bona fide Brahmana has first claim to the appellation Das. Therefore, in this case, the designation Das is not incompatible. This is Murari Mahiti, the brother of Shiki Mahiti. He has nothing other than your lotus feet. Here are Chandaneshwar, Simheshwara, Murari, Brahmana, and Vishnu Das. They are all constantly engaged in meditating on your lotus feet. This is Paramananda Prahararaj, who is also known as Mahapatra. He is very, very intelligent. Prahararaj is a designation given to brahmanas who represent the king when the throne is vacant. In Orissa, between the time of a king's death and the enthronement of another king, a representative must sit on the throne. This representative is called Prahararaj. The Prahararaj is generally selected from a family of priests close to the king. During the time of Sri Caitanya Mahāprabhu, the Prahararaj was Paramananda Prahararaj. All these pure devotees serve as ornaments to Jagannath Puri. They are always undeviatingly meditating upon your lotus feet. After this introduction, everyone fell to the ground like rods. Being very merciful upon them, Sri Caitanya Mahāprabhu embraced each one of them. At this time, Bhavananda Roy appeared with 4 of his sons, and all of them fell down at the lotus feet of Sri Caitanya Mahāprabhu. Purport: Bhavananda Roy had 5 sons, one of whom was the exalted personality known as Ramananda Roy. Bhavananda Roy first met Sri Caitanya Mahāprabhu after his return from South India. At that time, Ramananda Roy was still serving at his government post. Therefore, when Bhavananda Roy went to see Sri Caitanya Mahāprabhu, he went with his other 4 sons. They were named Vaninath, Gopinath, Kalanidhi, and Sudanidhi. A description of Bhavananda Roy and his 5 sons is given in the Adi Leela. The meeting of Ramananda Roy and the discussions with Mahaprabhu was in the chapter of his pilgrimage to South India? No, it's a separate chapter. And it comes, but it seems to, it comes right after? No. No. It's in the middle. But I'm saying in the middle of his pilgrimage. Or, right? In the middle. Smack dab in the middle or closer to the beginning? Why did I get confused? It says here something else. It says, in his return from South India, he met... Say what? Bhavananda Roy had 5 sons. One of them Ramananda Roy. Bhavananda Roy first met Sri Chaitanya. Sri Caitanya Mahāprabhu honored Bhavananda Roy by saying, the glories of a person who has a jewel of a son like Ramananda Roy cannot be described within this mortal world. Unless I missed 50. Where was I? 50? Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya continued, this is Bhavananda Roy, the father of Sri Ramananda Roy, who is his first son. Sri Caitanya Mahāprabhu embraced Bhavananda Roy and with great respect spoke of his son, Ramananda Roy. Sri Caitanya Mahāprabhu honored Bhavananda Roy by saying, the glories of a person who has a jewel of a son like Ramananda Roy cannot be described within this mortal world. You are Maharaj Pandu himself, and your wife is Kunti Devi herself. All your highly intellectual sons are representatives of the 5 Pandavas. After hearing Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu's praise, Bhavananda Roy submitted, I am in the 4th class of the social order, and I engage in mundane affairs. Although I am very fallen, you have still touched me. This is proof that you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport, as stated in the Bhagavad Gita 5.18, Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmane Gavihastani Shuni Chaiva Shvapake Cha Pandita Sambadarshina. The humble sages, by virtue of true knowledge, see with equal vision a learned and gentle Brahmana, a cow, an elephant, a dog, and a dog-eater, outcast. Those who are highly advanced in spiritual understanding do not care about a person's material condition. A spiritually advanced person sees the spiritual identity of every living being, and consequently he makes no distinction between a learned Brahmana, a dog, a Chandala, or anyone else. He is not influenced by the material body, but sees a person's spiritual identity. Consequently, Bhavananda Roy appreciated Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu's statement, which showed that the Lord did not consider the social position of Bhavananda Roy, who belonged to the Shudra caste, engaged in mundane activities. Rather, the Lord considered the spiritual position of Ramananda Roy, along with that of Ramananda Roy and his brothers. Bhavananda Roy, I'll say it again. Rather, the Lord considered the spiritual position of Bhavananda Roy, along with that of Ramananda Roy and his brothers. The servant of the Lord is also similarly inclined. He gives shelter to any person, any living entity, regardless of whether he belongs to a Brahmana family or a Chandala family. The spiritual master reclaims all people and encourages everyone in spiritual life. By taking shelter of such a devotee, one can make his life successful. As confirmed in Srimad Bhagavatam 2.4.18, Kirata Nandra Pulinda Pulkasha Abhira Shumba Yavana Kasadaya Yenecha Papa Yaravashraya Shaya Shudhanti Tasmai Prava Vishnave. Kiratas, Hunas, Andras, Pulindas, Pulkashas, Abhiras, Shumbas, Yavanas, and members of the Kasha race, and even others who are addicted to sinful acts, can be purified by taking shelter of the devotees of the Lord, due to his being the supreme power. I beg to offer my respectful obeisances unto him. Whoever takes shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead or is pure devotee is elevated to the spiritual order and purified from material contamination. This is also confirmed by Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita 9:32. Mam hi partavya pashritya yepi supapayonaya striyo vaishastata shudras tepi yanti param gatim. O son of Pritha, those who take shelter in me, though they be of lower birth, women, vaishyas, merchants, and shudras, workers, can attain the supreme destination. That was our marker. I know. Mark it again, okay? We'll take a couple of reflections or a question while I'm getting my book marked. And we may need the next volume. Here itself. Part 1 we already finished. That's part 2. You will get. Nobody wants to make a question or have a reflection. Mukaravind will oblige. Yes, Prabhu?
Maharaj, when the time came when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was coming back and then there was a decision to make where he should stay, I saw that how the devotees make such a practical consideration that it should be near and secluded place. So I appreciate that how the as you're saying that when we take decisions, we should take the decisions from the devotees, those who are good in decision making. And here King, without any fail, he told that this is the best place for him, that is the near and is a secluded.
That's a nice observation. Thank you. Yeah, it's kind of sweet. They arranged it. They knew Kashi Mishra's place was the best, right? Mahendra.
I noticed how the devotees were introduced. They went to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. I mean, these mostly were local Orisian devotees, like Shiki Mahiti and the others. You know, they didn't just go to Mahaprabhu and here am I. They asked somebody who was ready, had taken shelter and begged to be introduced, and then introduced, and Mahaprabhu personally embraced them and accepted them.
What an excellent observation. Excellent. Anybody from the outside People's Party? How is it out there? Is it loud? Hari Hari. Is it cool enough? You can hear okay? All right. Any last points? Last chance. Until tomorrow. Okay, Mukharvin, go ahead. Last one.
I was just wondering that, like in this one of the verse 17, Raja kahe bhatta tumi. So he has like a nickname or something, like instead of telling Sarvam Bhattacharya, he says Bhatta tumi. So is that's what like they used to address each other, or is this poetically written? I was just wondering.
Who was saying that?
Caitanya Mahāprabhu. Raja kahe. Raja is King Pratap Rudra.
He was saying to whom?
Sarvam Bhattacharya. And he's just telling Bhatta to me.
No, wait a minute. Let me get it straight. Who's saying to whom?
So the King Pratap Rudra is saying to Sarvam Bhattacharya.
And he says?
And in the Bengali says Raja kahe Bhatta to me. So he just Bhatta.
Just calls him Bhatta?
Yeah, he just says him Bhatta. So I was just telling that it's like the way they has more intimate ways to or it's just a Sanskrit, it's a poetic that he want to fit into the...
From now I'm going to call you Mukha. It's a nice observation, thank you. Krishna does it to Arjuna. Text 55, appreciating Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu's favor, Bhavananda Roy also said, along with my home, riches, servants, and 5 sons, I surrender myself at your lotus feet. This is the process of surrender. As Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur sings, Manasa Deho Geho Yo Kichu Mora Arpilun Tu Apare Nanda Kishore. When one surrenders unto the lotus feet, somebody go tell the kirtan party to be a little more enthusiastic. When one surrenders unto the lotus feet of the Lord, he does so with everything in his possession, his house, his body, his mind, and whatever else he possesses. If there is any obstruction to this surrendering process, one should immediately give it up without attachment. If one can surrender with all his family members, there is no need to take sannyas. However, if the surrendering process is hampered by so-called family members, one should immediately give them up to complete the surrendering process. This son of Vaninath will remain at your lotus feet to always immediately attend to your orders and serve you. My dear Lord, please consider me your relative. Do not hesitate to order whatever you desire at any time you desire it. Prabhu kahe. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu accepted Bhavananda Roy's offer, saying, I accept without hesitation because you are not an outsider. Birth after birth you have been my servant along with your family members. Sri Ramananda Roy is coming within 5 to 7 days. As soon as he arrives, my desires will be fulfilled. I take great pleasure in his company. Saying this, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu embraced Bhavananda Roy. The Lord then touched the heads of his sons with his lotus feet. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu then sent Bhavananda Roy back to his home, and he kept only Vaninath Patanyayaka in his personal service. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya then asked all the people to leave. Afterwards, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu called for Kālā Kṛṣṇa Dāsa, who had accompanied the Lord during his South India tour. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu said, My dear Bhattacharya, just consider the character of this man who went with me to South India. He left my company to associate with the Bhattataris, but I rescued him from their company and brought him here. Now that I have brought him here, I am asking him to leave. Now he can go wherever he likes, for I am no longer responsible for him. Purport: Kālā Kṛṣṇa Dāsa was influenced and allured by nomads or gypsies who enticed him with women. Maya is so strong that Kālā Kṛṣṇa Dāsa left Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu's company to join gypsy women. Even though a person may associate with Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, He can be allured by Maya and leave the Lord's company due to his slight independence. Only one who is overwhelmed by Maya can be so unfortunate as to leave Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu's company. Unless one is very conscientious, the influence of Maya can drag one away, even though he be the personal assistant of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. And what to speak of others? The Bhattataris used to increase their numbers by using women to allure outsiders. This is factual evidence showing that it is possible at any time to fall down from the Lord's association. One need only misuse his little independence. Once fallen and separated from the Supreme Personality of Godhead's association, one becomes a candidate for suffering in the material world. Although rejected by Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, Kālā Kṛṣṇa Dāsa was given another name, as the following verses relate. Another chance. Although rejected by Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, Kālā Kṛṣṇa Dāsa was given another chance, as the following verses relate. 66. Hearing the Lord reject him, Kālā Kṛṣṇa Dāsa began to cry. However, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, not caring for him, immediately left to take his noon lunch. After this, the other devotees, headed by Nityananda Prabhu, Jagannatha, Mukunda, and Damodar, began to consider a certain plan. Even though a person is rejected by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the devotees of the Lord do not reject him. Therefore, the Lord's devotees are more merciful than the Lord himself. Srila Narottam Das Thakur thus sings, Chadiya Vaishnava Seva Nistar Payeti Keba. One cannot be relieved from the material clutches without engaging in the service of pure devotees. The Lord himself may sometimes be very hard, but the devotees are always kind. Thus Kālā Kṛṣṇa Dāsa received the mercy of the 4 devotees mentioned above. The Lord's 4 devotees considered, we want a person to go to Bengal just to inform Shachimata about Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu's arrival at Jagannath Puri. After hearing news of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu's arrival, devotees like Advaita and Srivas will certainly come to see him. Let us therefore send Kṛṣṇa Dāsa to Bengal. Saying this, they kept Kṛṣṇa Dāsa engaged in the service of the Lord and gave him assurance. Purport: because Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu rejected him, Kālā Kṛṣṇa Dāsa became very, very sorry and began to cry. Therefore the Lord's devotees took compassion upon him, gave him assurance, and encouraged him to continue to engage in the Lord's service. The next day, all the devotees asked Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, please give permission for a person to go to Bengal. Mother Shachi and all the devotees headed by Advaita Prabhu are all very unhappy due to not receiving news about your return from your South Indian tour. One person should go to Bengal and inform them about the auspicious news of your return to Jagannath Puri. Upon hearing this, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu replied, do whatever you decide. She karo je icha tomar. Do that, whatever you desire. In this way, Kālā Kṛṣṇa Dāsa was sent to Bengal, and he was given sufficient quantities of Lord Jagannath's food remnants to distribute there. Thus, Kālā Kṛṣṇa Dāsa went to Bengal, and he first went to Navadvip to see Mother Shachi. Upon reaching Mother Shachi, Kālā Kṛṣṇa Dāsa first offered his obeisances and delivered the food remnants, Mahaprasadam. He then informed her of the good news that Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu had returned from his South Indian tour. This good news gave much pleasure to Mother Shachi as well as to all the devotees of Navadvip headed by Srivas Thakur. Hearing of Lord Chaitanya's return to Puri, everyone became very glad. Kṛṣṇa Dāsa next went to the house of Advaita Acharya. After paying him respectful obeisances, Kṛṣṇa Dāsa offered Mahaprasadam to Advaita Acharya. He then informed him of the news of Lord Chaitanya in complete detail. It's good too, there was no internet, so when he got there he wasn't cancelled by the time he got to Navadvip. Huh? He goes there as like bringing Mahaprasadam, getting the benedictions of all the devotees. When Advaitacharya Goswami heard of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu's return, he became very pleased. In his great ecstasy of love, he made a rumbling sound and danced and chanted for a long time. Also hearing this auspicious news, Haridas Thakur became very pleased. So also did Vasudev Dutt, Murari Gupta and Shivananda Sain, Acharya Ratna, Vrikreshwar Pandit, Acharya Nidhi and Gadadhar Pandit were all very pleased to hear this news. Sri Ram Pandit, Damodar Pandit, Sriman Pandit, Sri Ram Pandit, Damodar Pandit, Sriman Pandit, Vijay and Sridhar were also very pleased to hear it. Raghava Pandit, the son of Advaita Acharya, and all the devotees became very satisfied. How many can I describe? Everyone was very pleased, and they all gathered together at the house of Advaita Acharya. All the devotees offered respectful obeisances at the lotus feet of Advaita Acharya, and in return Advaita Acharya embraced them all. Advaita Acharya then held a festival that lasted 2 or 3 days. Thereafter they all made a firm decision to go to Jagannath Puri. All the devotees met together at Navadvip and, with Mother Shachi's permission, departed for Niladri, Jagannath Puri. The inhabitants of Kulina Gram, Satyaraj, Ramananda, and all the other devotees there came and joined Advaita Acharya. Mukunda, Narahari, Raghunandana, and all the others came from Kanda to Advaita Acharya's home to accompany him to Jagannath Puri. At that time, Paramananda Puri came from South India. Traveling along the banks of the Ganges, he ultimately reached the town of Madhya. At Navadvip, Paramananda Puri took his board and lodging at the house of Shachimata. She provided him with everything very respectfully. While residing at the house of Shachimata, Paramananda Puri heard the news of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu's return to Jagannath Puri. He therefore decided to go there as soon as possible. There was a devotee of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu named Dvija Kamalakanta, whom Paramananda Puri took with him to Jagannath Puri. Paramananda Puri very soon arrived at Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu's place. The Lord was very happy to see him. In that great ecstasy of love, the Lord worshipped the lotus feet of Paramananda Puri, and in turn Paramananda Puri embraced the Lord in great ecstasy. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu said, "Please stay with me and thus show me favor, accepting the shelter of Jagannath Puri." Paramananda Puri replied, "I also wish to stay with you. Therefore I have come from Bengal, Gaudiya, to Jagannath Puri." At Navadvip, Mother Shachi and all the other devotees were very glad to hear about your return from South India. They are all coming here to see you, but seeing that they were delayed, I came alone very quickly. There was a solitary room at Kashi Mishra's house, and Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu gave it to Paramananda Puri. He also gave him a servant. Swarup Damodar also arrived the next day. He was a very intimate friend of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu's, and he was an ocean of transcendental mellows. Purport: Swarup is one of the names of a brahmachari in Shankaracharya's disciplic succession. In the Vedic discipline, there are 10 names for sannyasis, and it is customary for a brahmachari assisting a sannyasi of the designation, tirtha or ashrama, to receive the title Swarup. Damodar Swarup was formerly a resident of Navadvip, and his name was Purushottamacharya. When he went to Varanasi, he took sannyas from a sannyasi designated Tirtha. Although he received the title Swarup in his brahmachari stage, he did not change his name when he took sannyas. Actually, as a sannyasi, he should have been called Tirtha, but he chose to retain his original brahmachari title of Swarup. When Swarup Damodar was residing at Navadvip under the shelter of Sri Caitanya Mahāprabhu, his name was Purushottam Acharya. After seeing that Sri Caitanya Mahāprabhu accepted the renounced order, Purushottam Acharya became like a madman and immediately went to Varanasi to take sannyas. At the conclusion of his sannyas, his spiritual master Chaitanya Bharati ordered him, read the Vedanta Sutra and teach it to all others. Swarup Damodar was a great renunciate as well as a great learned scholar. With heart and soul, he took shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. He was very enthusiastic to worship Sri Krishna without disturbance, and therefore, almost in madness, he accepted the sannyas order. Upon accepting sannyas, Purushottam Acharya followed the regulative principles by giving up his tuft of hair and sacred thread. But he did not accept the saffron-colored dress. Also, he did not accept the sannyasi title, but remained as a Naishtika brahmachari. Purport: there are regulative principles governing the renounced order. One has to perform 8 kinds of shraddha. One must offer oblations to one's forefathers and perform the sacrifice of Viraja Homa. Then one must cut off the tuft of hair called a shika and also give up the sacred thread. These are preliminary processes in the acceptance of sannyas, and Swarup Damodar accepted all these. However, Purushottam Acharya did not accept the saffron color, a sannyasi name or a danda, and for this reason he retained his brahmachari name. Actually, Purushottam Acharya did not accept the sannyasa order formally, but he renounced worldly life. He did not want to be disturbed by the formality of sannyasa order. He simply wanted to worship Lord Sri Krishna without disturbance. Therefore, with heart and soul, he took up the renounced order, but not the formalities accompanying it. Renunciation means not doing anything but serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. When one acts on this platform trying to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one is both a sannyasi and a yogi. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 6.1. Sri Bhagavana Vacha Anashrita Karma Palam Karyam Karma Karoti Ya Sannyasi Cha Yogi Cha Na Niragnir Na Chakriyaha. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, one who is unattached to the fruits of his work and who works as he is obligated is in the renounced order of life, and he is the true mystic, not he who lights no fire and performs no work. Reflections, questions, observations.
I was appreciating how although Caitanya Mahāprabhu rejected Kālā Kṛṣṇa Dāsa, the devotees gave him some service to keep him connected with Caitanya Mahāprabhu.
It's nice, right? It's bona fide.
Yeah, in the same section, Maharaj, how Prabhupada has so much emphatically says that how we have to be careful of the Maya. Even you can be associate of Chaitanya Mahāprabhu, but Maya is so powerful that it can catch any time. And I was also appreciating that when all this incident happened, how much humiliated Krishnadas, what is the name? Kālā Kṛṣṇa Dāsa might be feeling, and when they gave him the alternate plan, or you can call second chance, he immediately took it. I'm sure he didn't say that he came from such a long distance, and again they are telling him to go to the Jagannath Puri to Bengal, and he immediately took that service. I think that free will also is always there, that even sometimes we get the second chance whether we take that or not. And I was appreciating that
the word Prabhupada used is conscientious. Unless one is very conscientious, the influence of Maya can drag one away. Look up conscientious. Conscientious etymology. So you asked a good question. Oh, thank you. It means careful, diligent, and thorough. Guided by a strong sense of morality or conscience. English entry, mid-17th century, around 1610 or 1630. Borrowed from Latin conscientia. Conscientia. Knowledge within oneself. Sense of right and wrong, the same source as conscience. Con, with, together, and siere, to know, from Proto-Indo-European root, ska, to cut, split, discern, distinguish. So conscientia literally means knowledge shared with oneself, an inner knowing, conscience. From that, conscientious developed to mean governed by conscience, morally scrupulous, and by extension, careful, thorough, diligent. Latin siere, science, knowledge. Conscientia, conscience, moral knowledge. Related Greek root, ski, also underlies ideas of discerning or distinguishing. Kanagopal, do you have a point? Just holding the microphone? Ekachakra. Or did you have a point?
Yeah.
Go ahead. We accept all points.
Hare Krishna.
And outside, you have one. You have several.
So I was just thinking in the Adi Lila, when Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is listing the various associates of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the eternal associates who are the different branches of the Chaitanya tree, he mentions a Krishna Das. And then in that purport, Srila Prabhupada specifically mentions this was Kālā Kṛṣṇa Dāsa, not Kālā Kṛṣṇa Dāsa, to make that discernment. So from that, I've always wondered exactly what kind of category of associate Kālā Kṛṣṇa Dāsa is in, because Prabhupada goes out of his way to mention he wasn't, not so we don't get confused in that particular listing of devotees.
I just wanted to appreciate Kālā Kṛṣṇa Dāsa. He spent 6 years alone serving Caitanya Mahāprabhu. I'm imagining there's few devotees who did more service in Chaitanya's pastimes.
See, he has his fans. Okay, let's see. Outside People's Party, go ahead.
Hare Krishna, I just wanted to relate a story that is quite applicable to this situation. In 1975, when Srila Prabhupada came to Mexico, there was one person who had previously accepted the sannyas order, but had recently fallen from that position, and it was one of the first fallen sannyasis within ISKCON, so it made quite a big stir, especially in the South American yatra. So when Srila Prabhupada came to Mexico in 75, that devotee came there, and in one darshan, at the end of the darshan, he stood up and he asked Srila Prabhupada, I want to know if you have rejected me, just like Lord Chaitanya rejected Chota Haridas. And personally, in my mind, I was thinking, oh, I'm so glad he asked that question. Now Srila Prabhupada's really going to get on his case for causing that disturbance. But of course, Srila Prabhupada didn't have that mood at all. He immediately said, no, I have not rejected you. Lord Chaitanya was God, and he could spread this Krishna consciousness all around the world by himself. But I am not God, and I am very dependent and grateful to you for the service that you have rendered. And when Prabhupada said that, I knew I was the one that was getting chastised for my offensive thoughts. Hare Krishna.
Hari Bo. Hari, Hari.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. I was just reminded of the pastime of Srila Prabhupada when
You got to keep the mic super close.
when Srila Prabhupada had said in a class that I will never fall, and then afterwards while praying, devotees asked him as to what were you praying for, and Prabhupada said, I was praying to Krishna that I may never fall. So they were confused and asked Srila Prabhupada, but Prabhupada, you just said in class that you will never fall down. And Prabhupada said, yes, I will never fall down because I'm praying to Krishna that I may never fall down. So I was remembering of that memory.
Important lesson. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna. I had similar sentiments to what many of the other devotees have already said about Kālā Kṛṣṇa Dāsa. One thing I wanted to add was that I often had the conception that when you hear about these pastimes of Mahaprabhu or from Krishna himself in the Bhagavatam or different devotees, I always had this conception that, oh, they're with Mahaprabhu or they're with Krishna, it's different for them. But then Kālā Kṛṣṇa Dāsa is a great example that no, it's not necessarily different. You always have to be vigilant, and it's always, the onus is on you to always be aware of Maya and how it's affecting your consciousness.
Maybe even more diligent, because one could become familiar. Familiarity breeds contempt. Shreshwar Prabhu, on his memories of Srila Prabhupada, tells how he had been scheming how to get closer to Prabhupada, because in that era, when Prabhupada would walk somewhere, especially a morning walk, then the senior devotees would envelop him, and it was really hard to get close. If you were on a walk, you'd stay on the periphery unless you were in a higher position. So Shreshwar was in Hawaii, and although there were some senior devotees there, he thought, now's my chance during the walk, so he was jockeying for a position. Whenever there was a little opening, he'd jump into it, and then in that way he kept moving ever closer to Prabhupada. And he got right behind Prabhupada, and on morning walks Prabhupada had a habit of stopping suddenly to make a point. And Sureshwar wasn't watching, and Prabhupada stopped, and Sureshwar then slammed on his brakes, and he ended up not touching Prabhupada, but Sureshwar described how Sureshwar's nose was about a millimeter away from the back of Prabhupada's beautiful transcendental head. And he said in that second that he was in that position, he had a revelation that this is not the kind of closeness that one should seek, because he felt that although I got close physically, I'm not any closer spiritually, just because I was able to push my way forward. I thought it was a well-crafted anecdote with good lesson attached to it. Who was next? Hari Hari.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. Srila Prabhupada writes how even though a person may associate with Sri Caitanya Mahāprabhu, he can be allured by Maya and leave the Lord's company due to his slight independence. What exactly is this slight independence?
It's the free will. And there's a book I read recently. I haven't finished it, but it's called Escape from Freedom by Erich Fromm, the psychologist. He traces the history of the way people get freedom, political freedom, and other kinds of freedoms, and then they try to give it up because it's scary. Sometimes in a society people will have a revolution, they'll get free and be self-governing, and then realize the weightiness of it all. And then in a secular way, they give up their freedom again to some despot who takes over and just thinks for them, because it's a hard thing. So human life is a juncture. When we come to human life, we can conceive of causality, and then we can also notice that we have a free choice, that we can choose good or evil. Animals don't have such a choice. There's no moral imperative there. They just are impelled by their senses to act in a certain way. So that's the nature of the soul. Krishna he's abhignan swarat. He's fully conscious and fully independent, unlimitedly independent, because we're small parts of Krishna. We have his nature. So we have independence. So we have a slight independence, which means that we can choose one thing or another. And Krishna gives us that opportunity, because ultimately he wants us to use our slight independence to surrender to him. Then it's sweet. If we're forced to surrender to him, then it wouldn't mean much. But when we have the choice to surrender or not surrender, and I might add, in that opportunity, Krishna gives unlimited choices, 8,400,000 species you can try out before you decide. Enough rides to go on. So that minute independence is our nature, or slight independence. And if we can realize it and use our intelligence to be well informed and find some molecule of sincerity to surrender to Krishna, then we've achieved the goal of life. Om Tat Sat. Okay? Patit Pavana.
Hare Krishna. I was thinking on a similar point, and I remember in the Bhagavad Gita, I can't remember what verse or purport, but the purport, Srila Prabhupada is discussing different types of fears that the living entity has, and one of those fears is fear of our personal existence. And one aspect of that personal existence, as you mentioned, is that we have this minute free will to choose, and we would choose Krishna or we choose Maya. And I was seeing that choice, even in the spiritual realm, is there, that we always have this minute independence, and that there's not a time in which we don't, I guess, that we give up our choice. And that, I guess, in the sense that, like, I've seen personally in myself in stages of Krishna consciousness, when in chanting, say I was chanting and almost looking for a time in which there would be some experience when I'd have to stop trying, but that doesn't happen. That really we always have to apply ourselves to Krishna, to choose Krishna, and of course when one has spontaneous love, that is more natural. But maybe you can share more.
Yeah, that's the point that Prabhupada is making here, and the point you made about when we have purified our senses and we have a taste for chanting, then the apparent choice is not always noticeable, because we're just absorbed and we're impelled to chant because of our taste. So it's not as stark or there's not such a dichotomy because we're already engaged. Vishaya vinivartante niraharasya dehina rasavarjam rasopyasya param drishva nivartate. One may feel that dichotomy, Krishna says, when we still have a taste for the material world, for sense gratification, but when we have a higher taste, it's not an option anymore. Just like you don't walk downtown Houston and think, oh, I wish I could go in and have some chicken or something like that. Just the look of revulsion on your face proves that when I say it, because you have a higher taste. It's not even in your senses right now to do that. If somehow or other you associated with chicken eaters for a year or something, I don't know, that desire could come back. But in your advancement, purified senses, you're no longer presented with that. You're presented with the choice, but it doesn't mean anything to you. It's ludicrous. It's paltry and uninteresting. And ultimately, one who has a higher taste, past nishta and ruchis, one is impelled towards, for the chanting of Hare Krishna. What to speak of asakti? There's no other interest in life. That's what asakti means. I don't care about anything else. In order to get my attention, you really have to try hard because I'm preoccupied with Krishna consciousness. What to speak of the higher levels, bhava and prema. Okay, yes, please.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
We have a question from Caitanya Mahāprabhu, who's watching online.
Great.
It's a bit scary for me that someone who was an associate of Mahaprabhu could get deviated. Krishna Surya Sama Maya Hai Andhikar, Jahan Krishna Taha Nahi Maya Adhikar. The usual understanding is that if we are in touch with Krishna, Maya cannot touch us. Does the deviation of Kālā Kṛṣṇa Dāsa not invalidate this principle? If the Lord's associate can be deviated, what is the hope for me to fight against Maya? Please can you give some suggestions on how to be prepared and wary of Maya?
Again, physical proximity isn't necessarily the thing that helps, because if you're in somebody's physical proximity and you could be, your mind can be elsewhere. For instance, who's in a better position? Somebody who lives in Delhi and has to work there and has to stay there and is always thinking about living in Vṛndāvana and hankering for Vṛndāvana, or someone that moved to Vṛndāvana but they're thinking, I wish I could go to Delhi because I want to go to the Haldirāms and have a snack and watch a football match. I mean, who's in a better position? And physical proximity, one's in Vṛndāvana, the other one's in Delhi. And so your point about, okay, he was close to Caitanya Mahāprabhu, but if you're not, if your mind isn't engaged, then you could be far away and not taking advantage of Mahaprabhu's mercy. The sun is there, but if you cover yourself from it, then you're not able to take advantage of it. Just like with chanting, you can chant and not even be aware that you're chanting. And although, then that's one of the offenses. So you're chanting and Krishna is directly present before you as the avatāra, but then you're thinking about something else. So you're not really there. Lokaram Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Is it alright if I share one other thing on that particular point?
I'm afraid we're going to have to insist upon it.
Hare Krishna. Well, this exact line of questioning from Vaikuntha Prabhu is what led me to consider this point about the actual position of Kālā Kṛṣṇa Dāsa, because we normally do hear that for devotees who have prema, their love for Krishna is so overwhelming that even though the choice to choose something else is there, their love is so strong that they have the higher taste that it's not an option, like you gave the example of chicken. So Rupa Goswami defines raga as the such a strong love for Krishna that even if it incurs our own suffering, it feels like happiness. So what to speak of acting in a way that would cause distress to the Lord? So for me, I think of the case of Kālā Kṛṣṇa Dāsa as he may not have had prema, because there are devotees in Vṛndāvana, in Krishna Lila, who did not yet have prema. They were still developing that. And so that's one way we can reconcile the case of Kālā Kṛṣṇa Dāsa, is that he had not yet attained this perfectional stage that Prabhupada and the Shastras describe as being completely beyond any possibility of fall down. That's one possible consideration. Another thing we hear is that sometimes the Lord makes a special arrangement for devotees who are on a higher level, and then uses that special arrangement for instructive purposes. So there's different ways we can think about it without becoming fearful. Thank you for allowing me to contribute that. Hare Krishna.
We should be afraid. It's not that we shouldn't. And that's brought up in the, thank you for your points, in the second chapter of the 10th canto, because in the course of Devaki's plight, when Kamsa was killing her children, she was forever fearful that he was going to come and kill Krishna when he was born. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, Prabhupada quotes him, that she was afraid because she wanted to protect Krishna. And then he says that we should also be afraid of material existence and of losing our Krishna consciousness. And he also extends it to, we should be afraid for the international cyber Krishna consciousness, that it doesn't get somehow derailed. And he goes on to say that that kind of fear is purifying. In fact, it kills the anarthas, Kam, Krodh, Lobh, Mada, Moha, and Matsarya. And so a little bit of fear of material existence helps one to be more conscientious. It's a often quoted statement by Prabhupada where he said, the problem with my disciples is that not afraid enough of Maya. And also we get it in Prahlad's prayers. He says, Trastyo smaham kripana vatsala dushahogra samsara chakra karanad vasatam pranita. That I'm not afraid of you, my dear Lord Nrsingadeva, everybody else is, but that's not what I'm afraid of. He said, I'm afraid of your Vishnu Maya, that I could be pulled back in again to that. It was 1-2.
Just wanted to add that we don't hear usually our recent acharyas analyzing Mahaprabhu's associates on which level they are. So we should probably also refrain from that. But what they explain is that Mahaprabhu is using his eternal associates for, giving an example like Chotu Haridas. And even Mukunda, when he was going to listen Mayavaris and others, Mahaprabhu said, I won't see you anymore. And we can see, he obviously was not very advanced if he wanted to hear Mayavaris, but we can't conclude that he wasn't on the level of prema or something like that.
Thank you.
I remember maybe 7 or 8 years ago you gave a seminar on Bharat Maharaj, and you highlighted 3 principles, and the overall context of the class was that fall downs don't happen accidentally. Generally it's a sequence of events which lead, and there's ingredients to a fall down which you highlighted from Prabhupada's purports as foolishness, willful neglect of spiritual practices, and willful neglect, and misplaced compassion, and how a combination of these three can put one in a precarious circumstance where even though they know they shouldn't, they still do the wrong thing. So to look at fall downs clinically and then create a composite based on all these cases of Kālā Kṛṣṇa Dāsa, Bharat Maharaj, and then create a context by which one can be protected and have a worldview which can protect them as they go through their own practice of Krishna consciousness.
What a good student who remembers stuff like that. Actually, the class, the first time I presented it, it was on a Wednesday night at the temple when we were still going in, and Wednesday nights there was a specific group because it's not an easy night for people to come to, and I called the class Anatomy of a Fall Down, and it was packed. I looked up and I said, "Hey, how come everybody's here tonight?" It's an interesting subject matter, and I really like your point because it goes to this, to allaying one's fear. If you're sincere and you're taking the proper steps using your independence, you can fortify yourself from that. And that's, Bharat Maharaj is one of the ones that Sanatana Goswami mentions in the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, among others. He said, oh yeah, he did that on purpose, because just to show how to make a comeback. And that's the other part of it. You can always make a comeback, although we read about it and there's a sense maybe, okay, Kālā Kṛṣṇa Dāsa, there's some stigma. But anybody can come back, and that's one of the messages that Krishna gives himself. Sopada mulam bhajata priyasya taktanya bhavasa hare priyeshaha vikarma yachchot patitam katanchit dhunoti sarvam hridi sanibishta. That if somebody does some vikarma as a devotee, then there is a reformatory system, and that is just keep doing devotional service. Because Krishna, who's within our heart, is always willing to rectify us and rectify the situation altogether. It just takes time, and you have to be really patient. And there's a reason for that, because if you fall down and you make a really quick comeback, you might think like, well, it's not a big deal, I'll do it again. But when it's stigmatized and maybe even you have to come back in the next lifetime, then you really think about it. That's what Bharat Maharaj thought about constantly. When he came back as a deer, he was really bummed out because he was so close, and then coming back as a deer is a high level of inconvenience. He had to go back to the Pulasha ashram and start Ashtanga yoga again as a little deer. And then when he came into Jud Bharat, who's one of my personal heroes, where he's just, that's it, and not finished. I don't care who says what. They tell me stuff, I'm doing the opposite from now on. And that's because Krishna consciousness is serious. It's not to be something to joke around with, and that's the same for anartas. And some would say it's almost impossible to get rid of anartas for a reason, because if you think, oh, they're easy come, easy go, then you just think it's no big deal. But it's like winning the Olympics time to the 10th power, that you're able to overcome one anarta. You have to put that much into it and be that serious at least. So those are examples given to us about how to avoid it. I guess the main point that I'm resonating with is that there are signposts, and it usually happens in stages, and so one should catch oneself. In a ILS, so-called ILS thing, where we had these breakout groups, I was sitting with a few godbrothers, and His Holiness Jayapataka Maharaj was in the group, and he was saying, we should teach everyone in ISKCON about thinking, feeling, and willing. He said, Prabhupada used to say that all the time, and we should bring it back, he said. Because there is a way in which, if you start thinking, then you're feeling, and then you're willing, and then you misuse your independence, he said you have to learn how to stop it in the beginning before it progresses and becomes acute. Yeah, right.
I petitioned for a return of the Wednesday night classes on the basis of everything.
Haribol!
Jayapatak Maharaj often recollects this anecdote where one Srila Prabhupada is praying to the deities, and a disciple asked him after that, what did you pray? Although it's not right for a disciple to ask the Guru what he prayed, then Prabhupada replied, I was praying to Krishna that I may not fall down. And actually, if you look at the prayers of all the acharyas, which Prabhupada said are the highest subject matters of study, the prayers of Bhaktivinoda Thakur or Narottam Das Thakur, all of them express great fear of Maya, that they may fall into Maya. So I think you brought out this point of Kamsa's, Devaki's fear of Kamsa. So I think that's just an inherent characteristic of the great exalted personalities, that they are very conscious of Krishna's external energy and they're always afraid of falling into that energy, even though they may be eternal associates or whatever. I mean, it's just their intrinsic characteristic. And just on that last point was that sometimes I've seen that devotees get confused because they think that devotees are supposed to be fearless. So then, but there are two kinds of fear. One is fear caused by Maya, which is when one identifies with matter, then kind of fear arises. That is what we are free from, because we are not supposed to identify with matter, but we are supposed to have fear of Maya. That is an essential thing which we have to have fear. There is no two ways to that.
So well articulated. Thank you very much. Okay, so now we have one last point and we're going to take a little break. Vamshuli.
Yadi dayana karibe patita dekhiya patita pavana nama kishera lagiya. Lord Chaitanya is certainly merciful, and you explained yesterday, Guru Maharaj, how he had asked Kālā Kṛṣṇa Dāsa not to continue serving him in order to maintain the social decorum, that people might point fingers. But at the same time, Lord Chaitanya did show mercy when Nityananda Prabhu asked him, that indirectly making a plan to engage Kālā Kṛṣṇa Dāsa in service. He said, do as you have decided. And certainly Lord Chaitanya knows the heart of all the devotees, and he is giving permission to re-engage the devotees. So he is certainly not giving up or rejecting Kālā Kṛṣṇa Dāsa. We are amazed by his infinite mercy and compassion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, Namachintamani, are we clear?
Guru Maharaj, we just have one comment from Chakudra Venam Prabhu.
Okay.
He says, thank you, Guru Maharaj, for giving the definition of conscientious.
Of what?
Conscientious.
The conscientious.
And we have 24 devotees watching online.
Hare, Hare. We'll take a break and come back here at high noon. Hare Krishna.